This is Dustin with Tech X Cyber. Thanks for checking in today. We're going to be talking about connecting cybersecurity to business success and actually connecting business success to cybersecurity as well. So, if you are my friend, if you know me, if you kind of know me, if we've worked together, you're watching this video, hit that like button below, subscribe to my channel. Those are good reasons for me to keep putting out these videos and talking about some of the cyber concepts that come into my mind. If you have questions, you can reach me at dustin@techxcyber.com. So let's dive into this one today. Again, like I said, we're talking about connecting cybersecurity to continued business success. So I want to talk about what does success look like? That's the first thing we need to define. If you're a business owner or a manager, right, success may be different things to you. So we have to list what some of those things are. These are our goals. And when we determine what our goals are, we can start building a list of functions and daily business processes that we want to implement to meet our goals. And then we want to find a way to become efficient, increase our revenues, right? Push things out faster. And what we do with how we do this is through information technology. And as we use this information technology, there's a set of risks that come along with that. So we're really connecting these functions that we want to meet, these goals that we want to meet, to information systems and the challenges that we may face on those if something does go wrong, if we do have a cybersecurity concern. So with that, let's go ahead and jump over here to the first slide that says fear is the enemy of success. Now, I will continue to talk about this topic briefly over and over and over again at the beginning of every single one of my presentations. I will always talk about risk because honestly, every single thing that we're talking here has to do with the concept of risk. So if you haven't watched any of my videos, this is your first time listening, risk is the multiplication of the likelihood of a negative cybersecurity event happening to you by the impact that that would have on your data and your systems, and then ultimately how those impacts would impact the business. And so we need to think about the data and systems first, and then we can extrapolate what does this mean to the business, how does this impact our continued success. So one of the reasons why I chose this quote is because if we're not using a risk-based approach to cybersecurity, a lot of times what I've seen in the industry is that there is a fear-based approach. And so one of the problems that happens with the fear-based approach is that every single cybersecurity challenge you have as a business is all the same. All of them are equal, they all have equal damaging effects, they're all equally likely, and the reality of the situation is that's just not true. Risk operates on a sliding scale and fear does not. So we need to go in the sliding scales so we have a more clear picture of exactly where we are, as well as being able to compare what risks are more important to us and what risks are less important to us, or if we can accept those risks because they're in an acceptable level. So for the purpose of this presentation, we're going to be focusing more on the right side, which is the impact. So again, I'll just read this here up at the top. It says risk is the likelihood of a negative cybersecurity event multiplied by the impact that that would have on data and systems. So because we're focusing on impact today, there are different variables and influencing factors that may make something more impactful or less impactful. And I'm not going to cover all of those today, but I'm going to cover the one that I really focus and hit on the most that can get us pretty close to knowing how impactful something may be. And that is below here. It's the CIA triad of the impact. So CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So let me break these down for you and help you understand what do they mean and give you some examples of impacts. So first one, confidentiality means, can I keep data secret? Can I keep information secret from unauthorized access, from people who shouldn't be seeing it? Can I keep these sensitive business conversations internal only to authorized employees and individuals that I want to share this information with? The next one is integrity. If I have a system that processes something, integrity is that I trust that the system is operating as intended and the results that I get and the data that gets spits out is exactly what I think that it should be. If a hacker's come in and changed the way that a system operates, the integrity of that system has been compromised. The last one here is availability. This is, can I get to the system? Can I get to the data that I need to do my job without extended periods of interruption? And if there are interruptions, what does that look like from a productivity standpoint? How does that impact me? And so what we want to do is maintain this continuous set of uptime. So A lot of the conversation today is going to be focused around the impacts that are going to be happening to a business if there is a cybersecurity event that distracts them, or maybe some data is stolen, right? So we're really focusing there. We're not going to hit likelihood too much. That's a little bit more about implementing cybersecurity best practices, remediating vulnerabilities and things like that. But today we're living on the impact side. So let's talk a little bit more about risk. I love this chart, but I hate showing it because it's a little bit confusing. But once you get it, you kind of go, oh, okay, I see what's going on here. So I'm going to do my best to help you understand what's happening in this risk triangle here. So as you can see, there are 3 tiers. You've got 1, 2, and 3 starting from the top, moving down to the bottom. Tier 1 is about organizational risks. Tier 2 is about mission and business process risks. And then tier 3 is about information system risks. We really live in number 3 most of the time when we're assessing cybersecurity. And the other interesting thing to call out about this chart is you see these arrows go up or they go down. So we can start with information systems. We can work our way up to determine what our organizational risks are, or we can start at the top with the organizational risks, work our way down to conclude what the information system risks may be. For this particular slide, I want you to focus here on tier 1, so the organizational risks. And over here in these bullet points, really what I'm trying to say here is that number 1 is viewed at a macro level. This is big picture, 20,000 foot view, eagle soaring in the sky, looking down. These are the big picture items that we need to consider that our business is trying to accomplish. You could also think about these are our goals. So what are the risks to the goals that we are trying to work towards as a business? So as I said earlier in the presentation, one of the things that we want to do is figure out what does success look like to us? What does a goal look like to us as a business leader or a manager or somebody who has responsibility in the company? And these can really vary. So I'm going to throw a bunch of them out there, and people get to pick and choose. This one's important to me. This one's important to me. But I just want to get the juices in the brain flowing a little bit. So consider this, right? Maybe, this one's a little bit obvious, but a goal for a business would be to generate revenue and profit. Some others may be to build a community. You may want to have a strong team that you enjoy working with and strong business partners that you enjoy doing business with. You may want to innovate and problem solve. You are working to make a device or a widget or a piece of software that solves a problem for your industry. It may improve the quality of life of an individual, of your business. It may save time. It may make something more efficient. You may want to contribute knowledge to the industry and drive direction as a thought leader or influencer. And personal goal may be just to challenge yourself. Can I do this? Can I get this product off the shelf and make a profit and have somebody buy it? And as we work through these and we start thinking about them, when we think about these goals that we want to accomplish, eventually what's going to happen is we're going to have to create some processes and put them in place so that we can work towards, and I'll just take the first one because it's the most obvious here, which is generating revenue and profit. So what are some business processes that we need to implement so that we can make some money? Okay, and what are the risks to those processes? So that takes us down over to tier 2 here. Now, the business processes are a means to achieving what's happening over here in tier 1. Another thing that happens as we create these processes and we move down, we are starting to support these processes with information systems, okay? So let's say we're building a widget, we need to have a marketing team. So the business process is to market the product. And as we do this, there are certain risks that may be associated to the marketing process, but what we're going to do is we're going to find an information system that supports us in a way that we can market efficiently. And if you look at the third bullet point here, there's a price to pay for this. This efficiency that we're achieving because we're using an information system has a price, and that price is risk, right? So there is a worry, there is a concern, there are some things that we need to consider that could go wrong in the information system that could impact the business process. So let's go ahead and move down to the third one here and make that a little bit more clear. So these information systems prop up the business processes, which help us achieve our goals up in tier 1. So we're currently working from the bottom and going top. As I was going through the slides, we were starting from the top and going down to the bottom. Most of the risk that we're talking about in cybersecurity happens in tier 3. These are the systems, again, that are supporting the business processes. And as we consider the risks and we think about the likelihood and impact, again, on the impact side over here, we think about the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the information systems and the data that's critical to the continued business operations. So again, this is a key point that I think a lot of people don't consider when they're thinking about the CIA triangle is it really, the CIA triad, is that it's really about the data and the systems and then the business. We have to calculate and assess what those impacts are to really extrapolate what the business impacts are. And then once we do that, we start working our way up this chart. So I talked about looking at tier 1 at a macro level. Tier 3 is more of your micro pointed, pinpointed view of what are the little things that we need to consider. And I want to talk here about what are some macro business goals that may be in place for a business, and what could some of the disruptions be? What are some of the impacts that could be happening to these macro business goals as we look at the top of the triangle? So we talked about generating revenue and profit. If we have disruptions to the CIA, there are impacts to your bottom line. As the company is documenting profit and loss statements, doing financial forecasts, thinking about how cybersecurity could reduce those numbers is a big calculation that needs to happen. And if we neglect that and something goes wrong, we have this unexpected loss. We have this unexpected expense, which is going to greatly damage the business because it's not something that's factored in. We haven't prepared for it from a financial standpoint. It's going to drop our revenue. It's going to drop our profits at the end of the day. So cybersecurity impacts can drop just our bottom line. If your goal is to innovate and problem solve, we see things in the industry like intellectual property theft. If you've designed a widget that's proprietary to you and a company steals it because they've hired a hacker and they find a way to produce a cheaper widget and then they start selling it, this could put you out of business. This could impact your bottom line. So here's some more impacts, right, to these macro goals that you're working towards. If you want to build community and you have a web of trust between your employees and your contractors and your vendors and your customers, trust relationships are really important in business, and trust relationships are greatly impacted when cybersecurity fails. So when we do an assessment of a business email compromise, a lot of times what happens is we do have one customer, but what we often see as forensics investigators is that there is a web of compromised companies, compromised businesses, compromised contractors, and they're all kind of connected by these business relationships because this is what hackers do. They move around to these different businesses. And so if your email is compromised and you're sending out a malicious email unintentionally, or the hacker's sending it out using your email on your behalf, one that's been compromised, there are people that trust you. And if they're trusting the email that they're receiving, not knowing that it's from a hacker, they click on something malicious, or maybe they conduct a financial transaction that's been fraudulent and they don't know it, that trust relationship is degraded. So these are some more impacts about how cybersecurity could impact the business ultimately. If that trust relationship is degraded, people may not want to work with you in the future. And the last one here is challenging yourself. If your goal is to show up to work every day, be the best worker you can, be the best business owner, cybersecurity challenges and hacks and breaches, they're really a distraction. And so if your goal is to make the most amazing widget in the world, but instead you are fixing a cybersecurity problem or you can't access your systems or data, this could be a pretty significant impact to your business as well. So let's go a little bit more pointed here. Let's get into the micro business goals. So, I've been talking about designing and building this widget, right? But let's talk about the supply chain. So cybersecurity breaches and hacks impact the supply chain up the supply chain as well as down the supply chain. This is a little bit of a parallel with that trust relationship that I was talking about. We have a web of businesses that are connected that may rely on us for a particular piece of a product or a full product that they use to build something else off of it. And really what we're doing here is when we are neglectful and we don't address our cybersecurity challenges that we need to address and reduce the risk of, what we're really doing is we're empowering threat actors to continue their attacks. So we're actually increasing the risk for our peers and partners because we haven't addressed our own. So this is one micro business goal that may be having some impacts and suffering a little bit if there is a cybersecurity attack. If you want to find and retain customers, if you want to sell this widget to somebody, again, we talked about trust relationships. There's a very popular password manager company out there right now that's got some pretty significant hacks happening to them. And I'll tell you what, I'm not going to sign up with them. And so the goal of selling and making money and finding and retaining customers is definitely going to be impacted if your company has a reputation for getting hacked. If you want to partner and collaborate, some people may be a little bit more hesitant to work with you. They may be inheriting some of your risks. Other things to consider is if your business is up for sale and somebody's coming in and doing a valuation assessment of the company's financials, they may also look at your cybersecurity. And so you may become a less attractive target if your risks are high or if you've had previous exposures. And the final thing here I have listed is rewarding employees. If you want your employees to be happy and you want to pay them on time, you want to give them bonuses, you want to give them time off, you may not be able to do that when you're experiencing a cyber attack. Your IT team may be completely swamped trying to recover from a ransomware attack. And so it just generates this culture of disappointed, upset employees, and these very important keys to the success of your business from a very pointed view are not going to be happy with you, and ultimately there's going to be impacts to the success of the long-term business. So let's look at it from a different angle. So those are the micro, the macro pictures. What about that CIA triad? Let's talk about what that looks like a little bit more specifically. So we'll use confidentiality here. And in this example, I'm going to be talking about ransomware. Now, ransomware, we're actually going towards something called triple extortion. Most of the time we're seeing double extortion attacks. So everybody knows ransomware, right? Encrypts your files. You can't access them. You have to pay the hacker in Bitcoin and they'll give you the decryption key. However, in a double extortion attack, the sensitive files that are in your network are exfiltrated to the hacker's control into some sort of infrastructure that they own, and then either like published on the dark web or sold to other hacking groups, which then uses that information against you. So let's say you've got a folder full of sensitive documents, you've experienced a ransomware double extortion attack. Now all of those sensitive documents are now available and accessible on the internet. So you wanted to keep those confidential because they were business plans or schematics or some sort of intellectual property that you're using to build this widget. And now that confidentiality has gone out the door. So depending on the case, the confidentiality of the information can be used against you. Somebody could copy your designs. Somebody could talk about your business plans. Somebody could talk about your financial information. And so this is information that the whole world, if they all know it, there could be some negative impacts to your business. So let's move over to integrity. I'm going to stick on the ransomware attack idea here because very similarly, ransomware impacts all of the CIA. And the integrity impacts is that you expect your data to be accessible. You expect it to be the way that it is. However, in a ransomware attack, the data is encrypted. So it's a bit of an availability issue as well. But the data that you expect it to be is now not there. You can't access it. It's been changed. It's been altered. And so the trust of that data and the trust of the information that data was used to produce X, Y, or Z, you can't trust that X, Y, or Z is going to be out there. It may be something that's extremely unexpected because it's been changed or altered. And so let's say you have a system that processes some sort of financial calculation, and hackers come in, they've changed how the processing functions work because they're mad at you, and then you're getting all these outputs that are not what they are expected to be or that you think they are, but they're wrong. And so if you're using these outputs in other parts of your business or you're selling this data to another company, there's going to be disruptions to your business because we have a problem. Let's talk about availability. I'll use a little bit of a different example here. So we talk about denial of service. This is an attack that brings down a system or disrupts access to data. And if employees have to access certain data sets or have to access certain systems throughout the day, and they're experiencing a denial of service attack and they can't offer up their resources to employees, you've got periods of downtime. And employees can't perform their job functions. And I will tell you what, cybersecurity attacks are a massive disruption and distraction to the entire organization. People start talking, rumors start getting spread, people start going home and telling their spouses, and then you end up on the news. So availability impacts are going to be very much seen by the employees, and then there's a whole web of impacts that happen from there. And just to kind of get close to wrapping this presentation up, I think it's really important to talk about the people, because ultimately a business is about the people. Even if it's just one person, there's a person involved, there's a human, there's an individual. And if you have a business of 100 people, right, you have the responsibility of making sure that those 100 people can show up to work, do their jobs, get their paychecks, spend time with their families. And if there are cybersecurity concerns or attacks happening, some of those things that you want to set up for your employees to be successful may be disrupted. So let's take a look at number one. So investors and advisors. If you have an investor who is giving you money to build something or make a product or design something, and you neglect cybersecurity, that investor is going to be a little bit more hesitant to offer up more money to you, or they may demand some of it back. And so there's going to be impacts to the business based on the investors and advisors that are guiding the company. Business owners are going to be running around like crazy, right? They're very much invested in the business. And when a cyber attack is happening and they can't sell their products anymore, they can't produce their products anymore, they are responsible for getting these systems and the data back online or finding the right people that can do it. These are massive disruptions to running a business. So ultimately, there's going to be impacts down the line later on. Managers are going to have a tough time here because they're interacting between the owner and the staff. The staff are going to be asking managers what's going on. The owners are going to be expecting managers to be performing certain tasks to get these systems back online. And so ultimately, managers really just kind of the difficulty flows down here, and the managers may, again, not be able to manage their staff, which is ultimately going to impact the business. And as I talked about earlier, staff are going to be distracted. They're not going to be able to do their jobs. They're not going to be able to produce the widget. They may produce bad widgets because they're distracted, or maybe half-complete widgets. And so when we think about the people aspect here, this is the success of your business. It's the people. It's how they show up for you. It's how efficient they're able to be. It's them showing up on time, providing your company a service to get paid. And when there's distractions for these people, or they're feeling stressed because of a cybersecurity impact, we can clearly see that the business is going to struggle. So what do you do about all of this? I'll just give you this little quote to chew on here. It says, "Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can." And you may not be the most apt cybersecurity professional or know the most about cybersecurity, but wherever you are, there's somewhere to start. And so go ahead and check out some of these other presentations that I have. If you're not sure where to start, Risk Basics number 2 here is really hot. It's a good place to help you understand how you can make smart cybersecurity decisions. And there's some other topics that I have on my YouTube channel. You can check me out at TechXCyber. Send me an email if you want, and check out my website. There's a lot of content on there. I've got some white papers and just different educational resources that you can take a look at. Thanks for listening today. Again, this is Dustin with TechXCyber. Hope you enjoyed the presentation.